Welcome back to the channel. For 4,500 years, we've stood at the base of the Great Pyramids, looking up in awe and assuming this was the main event. But what if we've been looking in the wrong direction all along? What if the real wonder of Giza isn't towering above us, but hiding underneath our shoes? Like discovering your basement has a basement and it's bigger than your whole house. In early 2025, a story appeared online that made the internet collectively choke on its coffee. A team of researchers claimed they had found something under the pyramids. Not a tomb, not a secret tunnel, but a miles-long underground labyrinth straight out of legend. Think less extra storage and more forgotten city of the ancients. But almost immediately, Egypt's top archaeologists and geophysicists arrived with scholarly buckets of cold water. Complete fantasy, they said. No chance. So who's right? Is there a colossal buried maze under the pyramids? Or is this the archaeological equivalent of seeing a face in your toast? And if lost worlds, ancient artifacts, and historical mysteries are your kind of rabbit hole, subscribe and join me every Friday for a new deep dive like this one. Now, the claim is staggering. According to the processed data, far beneath the sands of Giza lies a colossal network on a scale that boggles the imagination. A labyrinth-like complex stretching for roughly 2 kilometres beneath the entire plateau. It seems like it's weaving under all three iconic pyramids like hidden threads. Near the base of the Khafre pyramid, their maps outline 5 vast multi-level structures, each estimated to cover a footprint larger than a football field. These appear to be linked by a lattice of corridors, ramps and chambers, and underground architecture echoing the grandeur above. From these complexes, the team says, 8 vertical shafts plunge straight down through the limestone, more than 2,100 feet, almost twice the height of the Eiffel Tower, just in reverse. The shafts, according to their model, are unnervingly precise in their geometry, with smooth, consistent walls, suggesting deliberate engineering rather than natural fissures. At the lower depths, in the deepest reaches of the bedrock, their data points to 2 monumental cube-shaped voids, each hundreds of feet across, positioned side by side with mathematical precision, like twin black monoliths entombed by time. The researchers compare them to anchors of the entire underground complex, perhaps ceremonial chambers, perhaps storage for something of immense value, or perhaps part of a lost ritual architecture that has no parallel in known Egyptian history. In their interpretation, this isn't erosion, faulting, or any accident of geology. This is a deliberately engineered subterranean city, a forgotten megastructure carved with skill and purpose, potentially long before the familiar monuments on the surface. They argue that if proven true, it could rewrite not only the story of Giza, but the timeline of human civilization itself. The team making these claims isn't a bunch of amateur archaeologists digging around with shovels on the weekend. It's led by Professor Corrado Malanga from the University of Pisa, Dr. Filippo Biondi from the University of Strathclyde, and Dr. Armando May, whose work straddles archaeology and multiple other disciplines. Between them, they've published in physics, geoscience, and archaeological methodology, and have worked with advanced satellite imaging systems like Cosmos SkyMed and Capella Space. Whatever you think of their conclusions, these are seasoned, highly qualified researchers pushing the limits of what technology might reveal about the ancient world. So let's move on to the proof. How could a structure that size go unnoticed in one of the most studied places on Earth? They didn't use ground-penetrating radar, which only works a few meters down. Instead, they claim to have combined 2 very different tools, synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, and something called Doppler tomography. First, let's look at SAR. Think of it as a radar on steroids. Satellites orbiting 420 miles above the Earth send out radar signals, which bounce back to create incredibly detailed maps of the surface. It's brilliant for spotting patterns in geology and archaeology and environmental changes, even through clouds and in total darkness. In the desert, it can sometimes pick up structures buried underneath the sand. But here's the limitation. Even with powerful radar bands like L-band or P-band, penetration is usually a few meters at best. Then there's Doppler tomography. This is a genuine scientific method, but it's normally used in very different arenas, mapping the motion of stars in astronomy or measuring blood flow in medicine. It works by detecting tiny shifts in frequency caused by movement and turning those into an image or a map. But here's the catch. There's no recognised mainstream use of Doppler tomography from satellites to look deep underground. It's simply not an established archaeological tool. So the team's bold claim is this: combine SAR's surface mapping precision with Doppler tomography's sensitivity to how different materials react to natural seismic vibrations. Put the two together and you can build a 3D map of what lies far below the surface. It's a fascinating idea, but as I said earlier, it has yet to be demonstrated or validated in peer-reviewed geophysics. So how has this study been received? Well, critics remain firmly unconvinced, seeing it as intriguing data, but with no proven track record. As of now, the combination of technology that they're using has no standing in established archaeological science. Egypt's most famous Egyptologist, Dr. Zahi Hawass, has dismissed the claims as completely wrong and baseless, calling the technology not scientifically approved, and the whole thing will ultimately be consigned to the dustbin of history. Others were equally blunt. Geophysics specialists such as Lawrence Conyers called the idea of mapping a city at these depths a huge exaggeration. Their main point? SAR is for surface mapping. Even on its best day, it can only penetrate a few metres, not half a mile through solid limestone. They also caution that the so-called structures could easily be natural rock formations or just artefacts of the data processing itself. And without a peer-reviewed paper or independent verification, the scientific verdict remains: interesting claim, but extraordinary evidence required. Of course, the idea of a vast underground complex at Giza isn't entirely modern. It's been part of Egyptian lore for centuries. In the 5th century BC, the Greek historian Herodotus described an astonishing labyrinth with 3,000 rooms, half above and half below ground. He was almost certainly describing the site at Hawara, far from Giza, but the story has lodged itself in the public imagination. Giza does have actual genuine underground features. The Osiris shaft drops over 100 feet through multiple levels, ending in a water-filled chamber with a sarcophagus. It's proof the ancient Egyptians were adept at subterranean construction. Now, granted, 100 feet is a far cry from the 2,100 claimed here, but it does suggest that there's still more to find. The plateau is riddled with shafts and tunnels, so while this new claim might be an enormous leap, it's not entirely without precedent. So we're left with two competing pictures. On one side, researchers with satellite data pointing to what could be the most dramatic discovery in Egyptian history. On the other, mainstream science urging caution, seeing an untested method producing results that could just as easily be illusions in the data. Even if the claims were rock solid, the Egyptian authorities would need to allow excavation. And given the controversy, that's about as likely as someone camping overnight on top of the Great Pyramid without attracting attention. For now, this alleged labyrinth remains an unconfirmed shadow, either the key to rewriting history or simply a mirage in the digital noise. So what do you think? Lost underworld or just a glitch in the data? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.